Good morning and welcome to our sunrise safari on this spectacular morning. It is really very beautiful out here. My name is Tristan. On camera today I've got Senzo, and we are coming to you live from South Africa. So that means that you, the viewer, are the most important part of this whole process, and so we need lots of input from you, and we can do that by hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or on the YouTube chat. And a special warm thank you to all of you that let us know about the male lion roaring. He did wake us all up, but it sounds as though he's already crossed off our southern boundary. I'm going to try, however, to look for his tracks and see if he is still around, but the last time I heard him roar, it sounded all the way down near Twin Dams, so we're going to just check, but I think he might have crossed south, as a naughty lion that they are. But failing him and failing if he's not around, well, then I think we're going to try and check around just for Shadow and Cubs, see if they kept their kill, and then on towards the hyena dens. That's the sort of plan for the morning. It should be a nice warm morning. I'm hoping that it's not going to get too cloudy and we're not going to have too much of this sort of thick bank of cloud coming in, because often they say red sky at night, sailors delight, red sky in the morning, sailors take warning, and well, it's a red sky this morning, so hopefully we don't get too much cloud coming in, and hopefully it'll be a nice clear warm morning, which will bring our Ellies out later in the morning, and hopefully it will be a busy one. So that's the plans. The best laid plans are often the way to go, and so we're putting positive vibes out. We're hoping that we will find some sort of sign of our noisy big maned friend who decided to walk past here. I believe he walked right near the dam cam and made quite a bit of noise, so hopefully he will still be around, because this seems to be what happens with the Birminghams. I was saying to Lou, it's almost like this is the gym for the Birminghams. This is the running track that they're on, and so they have this track that runs past Djuma camp where they've got to shout at everybody and say, look, I'm exercising, look how fit I am, and then they run all the way off and gone. So it seems as though this is how they like to do it. That doesn't mean that we won't find them. We certainly will try our very, very best, and maybe, just maybe, this lion is settled at Twin Dams and is laid down and is no longer roaring because he's now laid down. That's what I'm hoping for. Whether or not that's going to be the case is anyone's guess at this stage, but that's kind of what I'm aiming for, and I think our only hope at this stage. Now, there's lots of tracks for elephants that must have been here last night, and tracks for our male lion that goes straight down south along Twin Dams Road, so I'm literally just going to drive Twin Dams Road. I know that he's not close anymore from the sound of his roar. I know that he's strided his way all the way southwards, and I know also that the Styx Pride was hunting around Twin Dams, so I wonder if him going quiet around that area might be because he's bumped into the Styx Pride. Hopefully they've been successful with a meal. Wouldn't it be nice to catch up with some of the Birminghams and the Styx on a meal as well? So at least we know kind of roughly where he's going, and hopefully it will be a lucky one. I don't think we're going to be lucky, but you know what, gotta try. So track's still going straight down the road. I suppose I should put some lights on. It's a little dark still to be not looking for tracks without lights. You need a bit of the headlights, but I find with our LED bar that we have, which is obviously what throws this beautiful floodlight in front of us and is really very helpful when we're driving at night to see what's going on, is not the best for tracks. It's so bright close to the car that often you kind of just obliterate the road and it just looks like one white reflective surface, as opposed to a really nice sort of contrasting color that you get from the normal headlights of a vehicle. Now, I'm sorry that I paused for a second there. I had a fly go down my throat, and well, I swallowed it. It's all the way down and into my belly now, and that's really not ideal at all. So I almost choked on that and had to take a moment just to try and figure out what I was going to do, but it went down, and well, that's the end of it. It flew at a rapid rate into my mouth, so there was no other choice really. It was already down my throat before I even realized what was going on. Not the best way to start a morning, I can tell you. Hopefully he wasn't sitting on some horrible dung somewhere, because that's just not a pleasant thought at all. So, Senzo, why are you laughing at me? Senzo's laughing at me because I'm swallowing flies first thing in the morning. It's important to get protein in the morning, Senzo. You've got to be awake and got to get your protein and got to make sure that you're ready for the day. So a fly here and there is not the worst thing at all. Right, I'm going to try and race my way down towards Twin Dams, see if I can't find this lion sitting somewhere around that general vicinity, and while I do that, Miss McCurdy is out, she's ready to go, and she's got some giraffe in the sunrise.
Good morning, everybody. Oh, that was so beautiful. Manu, well done for trying. We had the most beautiful shot lined up, but unfortunately you cannot stop the animals walking. But it was, just picture this. Shall we show you a photo before I even introduce myself? Let's do that. Should we start the day off like that? Manu, I'm so sorry. That's what we had for you. Isn't that magnificent? Sun, hot air balloon, and 2 giraffes silhouetted against the sky. But next time, Manu, we will be quicker and we'll also super glue the giraffe's feet to the ground. My name is Tayla, and on camera with me, of course, bringing you the most fantastic wildlife through a camera. And onto your screens is Manu. And we are hoping to find the Angama pride, because last night, I forgot to mention to you, obviously we lost them. So remember yesterday, I don't know if I said it out loud, Manu and I were trying to decide if I said it live or if it was just the conversation between him and I. There was a massive eland, not too far, well, I think it was like 400 or 500 meters away, or a bit further than that, than the Angama Lionesses, and they were sort of staring in that distance, and probably about an hour and a half after we left and they went back to sleep, she tried to catch that eland. Apparently they jumped on its back, but could not bring it down. So that was actually very exciting. And then I was chatting to a guy, and interestingly enough, he said that their hunting times, you see them hunt more between about 9 in the morning and about 12 o'clock. Basically to the heat of the day. He says the Angama pride is specialists, and they hunt a lot of the times during the heat of the day, which is quite good to know actually. He's obviously been here for quite some time and made that observation, and that's what's nice, is that we go out later, but a lot of the guys around here are doing all day tours. Pretty cool though. Wonderful. But let's go see if we can find these lions. Maybe we will. I had a scan for them, but I couldn't spot them against the lugger. But we'll go drive and investigate. Jamie is just behind me, trailing in my dust. I'm sorry, Jamie. Let's go see if she's looking like she's got a bit of a tan.
I managed to duck away to avoid Taylor's dust cloud. I've taken a different road. I figured there was no point in us driving behind each other in single file. A very good morning to all of you. My name is Jamie, and this morning David is on camera with me, and I'm saying it in that tone of surprise because I can't remember the last time Dave and I went out on a drive together. Dave's been avoiding me and taking it deeply personally. Oh, Dave, I know. Dave's been very busy. Dave's been a stalwart, you know. I can't remember the last time Darby was on leave, but I think it was sometime in April. So Dave's just powered on through. We're carrying on. I know exactly what Taylor's saying about the Angamas. This morning she said to me she felt like they were taunting her. The number of times she spent time with them and then they just disappear into the non-off-roading area. I thought, oh, that is very pretty, Dave. Oh, even I with my non-camera focused eye, oh, that rhymes, can see that's pretty. How stunning is that? It's a silly time not to have a camera with me. Not, of course, that I would take photos, ever. That's so cool. Look at the oxpeckers on the back of the zebra. Man, that is pretty. Pretty. Well, that was a nice way to start a morning. Especially a morning where, again, I don't have that many plans. We're going to go and visit the jackal den because I want to. I want to go and see the little jackal pups. And then I think we'll go look for something. I don't know yet. It's very not galling, but there's a cheetah with 2 cubs, one of Kakenya's daughters, and she's just past where we can go and see her, where we've got signal and radio communication with final control. And I keep hoping that one day, if I keep driving the road and get as close as I possibly can to her, one day I'll get lucky and she'll be there. Because I've seen the cubs. Manu and I did an early morning excursion once to go and film them. and they really are utterly adorable, and I'm dying to show them to you. We just haven't had the opportunity yet. But as those cubs get a little bit older, perhaps she'll move a bit more. So as we continue on with no real goal in mind, Tristan is far more focused this morning. He's on his way to Twin Dams to see if he can find a lion.
I'm almost here. The tracks are still going straight south. He was scent marking in a few places and sort of twisting and turning, and the only hope we've got is that he drank at the dam here and lay down. But already from where I am, I don't see a lion anywhere in this general vicinity, so I think in all likelihood our male has already crossed out of here and gone. So not ideal at all, but I was hoping he would have drank and then just lay up on this bank somewhere. I know Nsuku's done that a few times. And wait, what's that on top of the dam wall? No, I don't think it is him. I thought I saw something on top of the dam wall, so I just want to get around that way. But I think it's just a branch, and the way it's sort of sitting looked a little bit light in color. Let's just double check quickly. But he's definitely not at the water's edge, that's for sure. So we just need to get around here. Come on, Birmingham. What is that? This is a little duiker on the dam wall. That is light in color, so that's certainly not a lion. That's for sure. It would be a very small lion if it was a duiker. Right, tracks. Where have you gone? Where have you gone? Must have just gone straight over and southwards. OD Farming, you hope that it's Mfumo because that's your favorite male lion out of the Birmingham boys. Well, I would hazard a guess that just typically I've, to be honest, never seen Mfumo down this side of the world. It seems as though this is Nena and Nsuku that walk here. Obviously, Mfumo could be here and very well be the one that walked down in this direction. I have no idea because we haven't seen it, so we don't really know. But at the end of the day, I would imagine this is probably Nena or Nsuku. It's typical of them to walk past Twin Dams and southwards towards the Styx Pride. They like it down there, whereas Mfumo tends to sort of stay with the Inkahumas more than anything else. I very seldom see him down this side of the world. So, I mean, it's not impossible, but I think it's improbable that it was him. Right. No sign of a male lion at the dam. No sign of a male lion's tracks that I can see just yet. So I want to just quickly check the main road here, because that will give me a better indication if this lion did cross. It gets a lot more sandy in this area, so I can see a lot better what's going on. But funny enough, it doesn't actually look like there is any tracks going south here. So I want to just quickly do a sort of loop. Okay, so we're just checking the ground very carefully, because if a male lion crossed here, his tracks will be quite evident quite quickly. So I just want to have a sort of double check that he hasn't come over. No, there he's crossed right there and has headed straight south into Little Gari. So I'll show you his tracks now and where you can see him crossing. I don't know why these Birminghams do this every morning. We've got some sort of vocalizing around Vuyatela camp, and by the time the sun rises, they're off. So there you can see his big footprint just on the edge of the road. It's quite a clear track. So there it is over there. Nice and clear in the sand. Big paws, big toes, and straight south into Little Gari past Baboon Pan. And I'm looking at Baboon Pan area just to see if maybe I can spot him, but I think he's already gone. He's probably gone down towards Treehouse Dam or Lucas Open. It's an area they like to spend a bit of time. Right, so there goes our lion roaring mission for the morning. Unfortunately, we shall try and kind of see what else there is. I'm going to go past Janet Jackson's house, just see if Janet Jackson's made it home after a night of razzle and dazzle, and see whether or not she's, or he, depending on which one it is having a little nap. Now, while I figure out what I'm going to do exactly next and what my route's going to be, given that our lion has given us the slip, I believe Jamie has found herself, well, a sparkling dazzle that is dazzling in the morning sunlight.
While while we're on our way towards where I've decided to go, which is our jackal den, we've come across a pair of, I would say, sparring zebra. It's almost at the point that it's a serious fight, but they have been kicking and biting each other. It's not as serious or as violent as some of the zebra fights I've witnessed. But what's very apparent is just how often they go for the really vulnerable bits. And these are two young males, and they've been scrapping, chasing each other around. And then one of them runs away with tail tucked down between its legs to try and protect itself. And of course, as we want to show you, they stop because that's relatively inevitable when filming live wildlife. Oh, is that an injury on that zebra in front there, Dave? Shall we see if we can... Yeah. Is that an injury? Looks like one. Oh, yes, that is definitely an injury. Ouch. That, judging by the scrape marks down the side of it, I would say is one very lucky escape from a lion. You can almost guarantee an injury of that nature. Sometimes when you see zebras with missing tails or really bad bruise wounds and broken skin, it can actually be from fights like the one that we've just witnessed. Zebra are angry animals. They scrap all the time. They kick, they bite. And they're not gentle to the foals either. If the foal follows the wrong female, she'll kick it, she'll bite it. But in that case, I suspect that cut came from a lion. Because I think you can actually see where the claws have scraped down. Now, whilst that looks really rather painful, it's not hampering the zebra in any way, and it just looks like a flesh wound, actually. And the resilience of these creatures, that zebra's probably going to be absolutely fine. What will be interesting is the way in which that wound heals. It's going to heal, and the zebra will always have slightly skew stripes. I'm going to get a little bit closer. So the stripes will heal out of alignment. And you can always see the survivors of a predator attack by looking at the way that their stripes are slightly misaligned. Sorry, buddy. Don't mind me. You're not going to. That's good. Marco, you would like to know how many stripes a zebra has. Marco, I'm going to provide you with an amazing opportunity here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to park next to a zebra, side on, once this chap shifts out of my way. We're going to park side on to a zebra. You can take a screenshot, you can take a count, and you can tell me exactly how many stripes a zebra has. Here we go. Perfect opportunity. What do you think, Dave? Now don't forget, Marco, to count the tiny stripes on the legs. You mustn't miss those out. And then, of course, deciding what is a separate stripe might also be a bit tricky, but I'll leave that up to your discretion. Don't forget the stripes on the tail as well. Yep, there you go. An opportunity presents itself, Marco. I've got absolutely no idea how many stripes a zebra has. I confess to never having counted them. I will tell you that probably every zebra has a different number of stripes because every zebra is uniquely patterned, as unique as a human being's fingerprint. So everyone is different, completely unique. I'm going to give you the opportunity to count the zebra's stripes, and while you do that, you can go and enjoy the sunrise with Tristan.
Well, it is a spectacular sunrise that we've got. There's this big orange ball that is rising slowly through this cloud layer, and it is seriously special. It is a very, very pleasant sunrise this morning, and we've got a dead tree that is kind of coming up from our vantage point. You can just see it on the right there of the sun, and there's lots of clouds in the air, and well, there's also tracks for the Styx Pride that is also here. Now they look as though they're turning north into this area, so I didn't see anything crossing south, but that's our view that we've currently got at the moment, is just clouds, dead tree, big orange sun rising. It is a wonderful way to start the day, that's for sure, and it's an exciting way to start the day. I don't know, it makes me happy when I see the sunrise. It's always interesting to know what's happened during the night and what's sort of what we have to decode and figure out, and what actually has gone on. So I always like it when the sun comes up. It makes me feel like there's stuff to do, and and that we've got mysteries to solve. But beautiful nonetheless, and you can see it's just going to start creeping in behind the clouds now, so we'll have a period where we probably won't have too much sunshine, and then once it gets past all of that, it's going to be very pleasant. Typical Cape turtle dove calling in the background. How nice is that? Almost looks like the sky is on fire. Very cool. You say it looks like a painting, eh, Senzo? So Senzo says it looks like a painting, and it does, with that sort of the clouds going over the top of the sun, or in between us and the sun. It really just kind of looks really very cool. I can hear our lion roaring too. So he's calling from literally just straight in my direction, not far at all, maybe I would say 200, 300 meters south of the boundary at the moment, so we must have missed him by minutes, unfortunately, but that's the way it goes. We're going to check around and see. Maybe the Styx Pride is still somewhere here and we'll drag him back northwards. It might be the case, because you can see on the road just below me here and just to my right, lots of lots of tracks for the Styx Pride, so they all are kind of coming up in this direction, so that's all the young ones that are walking, and it's very easy to tell lion tracks. That number would never be anything else other than lions, and they go from here and then they turn up into our sort of thicket towards Twin Dam side, but nothing comes out as far as I could see anywhere on Twin Dams Road. Obviously I wasn't driving slowly, so it's difficult to know for sure whether they did cross and go past the Milwaukee side, but at least we know there's somewhat where their tracks is. I'm going to just do a loop up and check, and hopefully their tracks will bring this male lion back up into this area. Maybe it's in Suko looking for his females, because we know he loves to spend time with the Styx Pride, so hopefully that will drag him up this way again and back onto our side. Or what could have happened is the Styx could have crossed south somewhere and gone. Now we are at Janet Jackson's hole, and that's why we actually noticed the sunrises. Unfortunately we saw a tail sticking out, and as we were trying to just position that we could just show it on camera, Janet Jackson ran away, and that was the end of that. So unfortunately we're not going to be able to see her, she was it. That's what we have to refer to it as. It was there, and we saw it briefly, and it then ran up, as it does every single time. So we're going to just have to keep trying, and eventually one day we're going to have some luck, and we're going to be able to see. It's quiet in there as well. I was sitting while we were watching the sunrise, just listening. No real sort of sign of her making noise or him making noise, and therefore I think it can't be babies in there, because if she scuttled and moved, then you would find that babies would make quite a bit of noise and quite a lot to say. So right, now I'm going to do a loop around just to check the Styx haven't come back to the west, and then I'll head towards the east again and see if they come out. Proud cat mama, the difference in the lion's roar and why we know male and female, well, typically the males is a much deeper, more what is the distance? Sorry, I thought you said the difference. The distance that we can hear, probably about 5 kilometers, so like 3.5 miles, that we'll be able to pick up a lion's roaring. They will be able to pick each other up from, if conditions are right, as much as 12 kilometers, which is a really far distance, and it's very difficult. We would never be able to hear that. If conditions were really good for us, maybe even 7 kilometers, but that's very seldom. It will take the wind blowing in the right direction and all kinds of other things for that to happen. So it's about that distance for us, and it's really quite amazing that there's a natural sound that comes out at that frequency and then that strength that we can hear it from so far. I mean, you think about music and how loud you've got to play it to hear it at that distance. It's pretty crazy. Right, I'm going to slowly meander this block, check and try and cut it off and see where the Styx have gone, and while I do that, let's go back to Tayla McCurdy, who I think has got a rather large individual that should slowly be making its way towards the water.
We've found ourselves out of the water. A big hippopotamus. We've been seeing plenty of them, and it's really not hard out here to find hippos out of the water. You can find them out of the water almost every single day. Now, that looks like a male hippopotamus to me. I'll let you guess why. But I wonder where he's been. And they always look like they're tiptoeing, like they've been caught in the act and they're trying to very carefully get back to where they've come from, so the water, and without being caught. That's what I've decided that a hippo looks like. See, they're just trying to creep. Can you imagine? Da-dum, 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 da-dum. And then he needs to pick up the pace. It would have been great timing if he did that. Thanks, hippopotamus. But on his way, maybe he's not even going to go to the river. Perhaps he's heading towards the tree line. There is lots and lots of water in some of these luggers after all the rain that we've had. And it'll be quite nice now, especially on these hot days, because I can imagine from all the animals going through it and, you know, feeding along the banks, hippos going for afternoon, not hippos, elephants going for afternoon swims. It's probably all churned up too and quite muddy, which would be quite nice to coat the skin. Don't you think? Especially with again, the hot weather. It would be good for them. But we're going to keep searching for the Angama pride. They seem to have moved out of their favourite area. Jamie is on the hunt, and she's found something that likes to hunt.
I'm sorry, Tayla, I've got the Angama pride. I didn't mean to. I've got only one Angama female, and she is hunting. She's using the ridge of the road to hide her from the view of an intently alert Topi antelope. I didn't intend for it to be this way. Oh, is that a baby Topi? Looks an awful lot like a little baby Topi. In fact, it looks like a brand new Topi. Oh, goodness. Alright, let's catch up with her. She's going to use this mitre drain over here to get closer. So a mitre drain is basically a ditch that is dug along the edge of a road so that the water runoff created by the artificial situation of the road is mitigated. Alright, so what we're going to be doing now is we are going to be going into a Facebook Live as well. So I'm going to be reintroducing where we are and what's going on. Obviously, you're not going to miss a moment of the action. You'll still be with us. Where's that Topi? It's still there. She's still got a long way to go, but Alice, I think let's get it going. Hello and welcome to the Masai Mara first thing in the morning, where we're with a stalking lioness who's utilizing the road, and she's after an antelope that is off to the right of us, completely unsuspecting, a Topi antelope. There it is over there. And not just is it this female, but it's also her tiny newborn hopping around. Quick introduction as to where we are and what's going on. My name is Jamie. This morning Dave is on camera with me, and we're live here first thing in the morning in the Masai Mara of Kenya, and we're watching this lioness utilize the road to actually stalk up and get closer to the Topi antelope. So what she's going to do now is she's going to utilize the terrain. The grass is no longer long. The wildebeest, the migration have been through. They've fed on most of the grass. So she needs to use her environment in order to sneak up on the Topi. Now you will notice other vehicles in the sighting. That's because there are tourists here. Look at that. Look at that belly crawl. We're enjoying this sighting with other people as well. The Topi still completely hasn't noticed her. So she's going to crawl along. She's actually going to disappear along this mitre drain. So we're going to go and catch up with her. And I'm not going to move too much further forward. In this case, we're going to have to use a little bit of patience. There, she's popped out again. She's popped out once again. Okay, she's changed her mind. She's not going to use this mitre drain yet. This is fascinating. She is actually quite full-bellied, which I wasn't expecting, because we've been sitting with this pride for the last 3 days and we haven't seen them feed. Look at the alertness in her body language. I didn't do it. It is amazing just how strong that maternal instinct is. And yes, the mother of the baby Topi might actually try to defend her little one if she is attacked by a lion. And she'll probably, there are lots of cases where in that situation, oh, it's so tiny, that is such a brand new little thing dashing about. There are cases where the antelope have actually died. Antelope, zebra, buffalo, the mothers have actually died trying to protect their little ones. It's always very sad to see, but remember, maternal instinct goes both ways. And in this case, this lioness, I know, has got cubs. This whole pride together has got 13 cubs. Dana, I'm not sure. There are 4 lionesses in this pride. So I don't know if she's hunting alone or if there is another lioness waiting in ambush. It's very hard for me to tell. I'm gonna just get past and into the right position, so bear with me. We're just gonna take one quick look at the lioness. You can see her frozen in anticipation. There she goes. There's more than one Topi antelope there. Rebecca, speaking of lions and the calls that they make to each other, you want to know if other animals will react to the contact calls of lions. Yes, they will. That's one of the reasons why the contact calls between lions are so soft, especially between a mother and her cubs, because a hyena might get curious and come to investigate. Potentially another lion might hear it and come and investigate as well. There's the Topi moving slowly forward, still completely unsuspecting, but the Topi antelope is known as the policeman of the Mara, apparently, because they are always very alert and always on the lookout for potential predators. And I think, although this Topi hasn't spotted her, I think that the mother of the newborn has. And you can see, by the way that little one was playing earlier, it's already got a full use of its limbs. It's still very, very quick, even though it is, I think, probably only about a day or 2 old. Topis, I think they're aware that something's wrong, but they haven't quite worked out what it is. And remember, we've got the advantage of being slightly lower than the lioness, so we can see her clearly. But she is using the terrain, she's using the ridge to help her to sneak up on them. The one on the right is very alert. Yes, Mum, you be alert. Watch out for your little one. Because, as Laurie says, yes, she does look a lot like one of those termite mouths. In fact, so much so I've lost her. Oh, there she is. I lost her for a second. I couldn't see where she was. And now it becomes a game of patience as well. She's intent, she's focused, but she's got absolutely no cover. She's got no way of getting closer to that Topi. And the thing about stalking is that you have to see where the prey is, so that the lions have to keep popping their heads up in order to keep track of the movement of their prey. And because this is completely live, we're filming this as it's happening, we have absolutely no idea just how it's going to play out. The amazing thing, Megan, about baby antelope in general is the fact that they are almost, not quite, but almost as fast as the adults from the moment they're born. So they're born slightly disproportionate, and I know, I'm afraid we're looking right into the sun, but unfortunately I think this is going to be our best position for now. They're born slightly disproportionate. They seem to have very gangly, very long legs. And that's to allow them to keep up and to escape from things that will be setting out to hunt them from the moment they are born. But they're still slower than the adults. Almost as fast, but still slower, and not as strong and not as able to fight back, which makes them a very, very easy target for something like a lion. And that Topi is very tiny. Riti, and I've done a terrible thing, so the car's going to shake a little. It's not Dave's camera work, it's me. I've had my foot on the brake the entire time in anticipation of what's going on. Riti, antelope do have good eyesight. I personally believe, and Topi as well, I personally believe that their eyesight is a lot better than we give them credit for. Yes, they rely on their hearing. Yes, they rely on their sense of smell. But if you've ever seen antelope spot movement in the way that they do, it is impossible to sneak up on them unless you are as subtle as a lion or perhaps a leopard. The mother Topi's relaxed her attention. I've often wondered that, Michael. It's a very, very good question. And Michael's question is, does the maternal instinct make the female more alert than she might otherwise be? And I think that my answer to that question is going to be no. No, I think that the antelope are alert regardless. She might be alert for smaller predators that she might otherwise have ignored. Perhaps something like a jackal, maybe not a jackal, but a lone hyena or something like that would be far more likely to pick on a little one than it would be to pick on an adult. So she might be more aware of the smaller predators, but at the same time I think that they are constantly on alert for lions. Look, she's looking and ducking back down. She's got to play her cards right, but remember, I mentioned that there are 4 lionesses in this pride. I don't know where the other 3 are. And it's entirely possible that this ambush has been planned. They could very easily be on the other side of this ridge. This lioness might have come all the way around. I don't know. I can't tell. I can't see. Oh, there she goes. The Topi's now trotting across in front of the lioness, still a fair distance away. She hasn't managed to get close enough. And Topi are one of the fastest antelope out here. Sankar, you say what an excellent view and a wonderful experience. I have to say, it's not how I was planning on spending my morning, but that's half the fun of filming wildlife pretty much 24/7, which is what we do. Look, I think this little baby's going to get away. And we don't choose sides, but it's nice to see this callow little one making its way to safety, because at this point, this lioness is too far away to get it. It is such a beautiful morning out here in Kenya. We're in the Masai Mara, the sun is shining, everything's clean from the rain last night, and we've got these amazing images. Now let's just give it a few more minutes just to see what this lioness does. Remember, we don't know where the rest of the pride are. I think her attention was attracted by that little antelope. And in this case, the Topi have won the battle of life and death today. But that's okay. The lioness is well fed. She's got quite a full belly. And it's a happy ending for the little baby Topi. The lioness can still feed her cubs, and the Topi, for now, wanders away quite safely. I think that will bring us to the end of those of you watching us on social media. It's been an absolute pleasure sharing this experience with you. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned, because we're going to be filming many, many moments just like this one here in the Masai Mara.
Well, it's all happening this morning, so from lions hunting to shadow and cub. And you can see she's a little bit on the upset side. I think hyenas gave her a tough time. Lots of tracks for hyenas here last night. It seems as though she has put a bit of the carcass up into the tree. You can see the little cub is behind her and is making quite a bit of noise and squeaking away as she looks at mom and wants to go up. There's really so little left, though, that it's not going to be even worth going up into the tree for it. But look, mom is saying, away, I want to go up into the tree. Let's see whether they're going to go there or if they're going to head towards Treehouse Dam and go for a drink. But okay, girl, don't worry, it's okay. She's a bit grumpy with her cub as well. Her cub has been jumping on her head and biting her and grooming her, and she's been getting a little on the grumpy side with the cub. So I think she's had enough, and she's now going to maybe find somewhere to lie down. Hopefully she'll settle somewhere, at least in a little bit more of an open section, because she does like to get into thickets. I see the cub is making its way towards a fallen over stump, so maybe the cub is going to lie there. But let's see, is she going to climb for us? Looks like she's going to maybe go up. No, she's just going to scratch her claws, and you can see those massive claws just between the V there. There we go. Now, are you going to go up, girl? There's not very much up there for you, and it's going to be a really difficult tree for her to climb. I wonder if maybe the cub didn't put it up in there, because where that is not exactly the easiest place, and with Shadow's slight limp at the moment, I'd imagine she's struggled to get away all the way to where that kill is, but she's looking longingly up there. Let's see, there we go. So if you're wondering whether or not she can climb, that is a perfect example. So even though she's got a little injury at the moment, she's still able to climb really well, which is fantastic. So I'm glad to see that she can climb, except that she's gone up the wrong branch of the wrong trunk of this tree. Although that doesn't seem like it's going to stop her in any way. And look how she's just looking up longingly. How cool is this? So like I say, we're being spoilt already this morning. Lions hunting, leopards climbing trees. It's all happening. Now they're not far from where they were last night. It took us a few minutes just to quickly spot them. They were really well camouflaged at one point. Well done, girl. So there we go. That's a perfect example that Shadow will be just fine. For those of you that are stressed about it, oh, don't fall now. Don't go up in that. No, that's the wrong branch, girl. The long way around is what that's called. But for those of you that were stressed that she wouldn't be able to move around and do what she needs to do, that's a prime example that even with that forelimb not being as sort of in the right condition as it should be, and her limping, she's still able to maneuver through even the toughest of trees. I mean, this is not an easy tree. You can see she's got the head of the steenbok now that she's coming down with. I wouldn't be surprised she drops it down and comes and feeds off it on the ground where it's a lot more comfortable. But that's the head. So if you're a bit squeamish, probably the best time is to look away now. Let's see, she's going to come down slowly. Well done, girl. You can see it's a little sore, and that's why she kind of is a bit unsteady. She'd be probably far more steady if she was in a situation where she hadn't had an injury, but still able to do it. And I'm sure she's going to now chomp down on her steenbok. There's still a leg or two that are there as well. Riti, generally the cubs are starting to climb trees already at about 3 months old, so that's when they're starting to climb trees for the first time, and when it becomes far less dangerous for them. Now I'm going to just move slightly because where we are now is not great in terms of being able to see either her or the cub, so I want to just try and sneak forward slightly just so we can have a little look. So let's see, she's starting to crunch down on her steenbok, and what I am amazed at is just how relaxed the cub has become. The cub is a lot more relaxed than what it was the last time I saw it. It's just sitting watching us and not really too phased at all. You can see there on the left. Remember the last few times we saw it, it would kind of slink down, get its head low and run away. Now it's just sitting like a normal leopard and it's just watching. It's not even lowering its head too much either. So beautiful little individual, and she's fast becoming far more relaxed. But I forget how small she still is. A tiny girl, much like her mom and her sisters have been, all very small little females, and she's going to be hopefully an absolute asset to this area as well. And I'm hoping that we'll obviously see, it brings to mind Shongile when we see these young females, and hopefully Shongile will come back to us and we'll be able to find her in the coming days. She's been an individual that's been a little bit on the scarce side, but at least we have another female that could potentially be in this area, so hopefully Shadow brings this cub somewhere, or leaves this cub somewhere in an area that we will still get to see her from time to time, because she is a beautiful little individual and reminds me a lot of both her mom and Karula and that lineage. She's got the typical Karula lineage look about her, and I think she'll be a very pretty young female, much like little Shongile is. But I'm, like I say, super surprised at how relaxed she's become. Mr. P in Canada, you're saying how is the injury going to heal if she keeps putting pressure on it? well, she doesn't really have a choice, Mr. P. It's not like she can go and lie on the couch with her foot up and order room service or a delivery. So she's got to, unfortunately, she's got to just push through it. And the body is quite amazing. Is that once pushing through, and if it was, let's say, like a crack in a bone or something like that, it will just heal on its own accord. It'll take a much longer time period than it would if she rested up and wasn't putting weight on it. But over time and her walking, eventually the muscles get stronger around there. They start to basically develop and help her with that injury, and she's able to then cope. And if she can climb trees the way she did now and catch steenbok, then she's just fine. She's going to be okay, and her limp is getting less and less the more we see her. I mean, she still is limping, but it's really not as prominent or as noticeable as what it was a month ago. And so she's slowly but surely, the muscles and the bone structure are going to be resetting, and the muscles will start to grow again and get stronger, and the more weight she puts on it and the more she walks, the better it will get. It's just unfortunate that they have to do it that way, and that's why it takes so much longer. If it was probably an injury that a human had, let's say if it is a muscular tear or something that was hurting her, you would find a human would have put its feet up and would have rested and put it in a cast, and basically that injury probably would have healed within a month. Whereas she has to kind of run around, she still has to feed, and feeding is not easy. They've got to chase animals and they've got to run over uneven terrain, and so that means that it extends that process out a lot more. I think the first time we saw her must be almost 2 months ago now, when she was limping. So it's a situation that, you know, at the end of the day, as time goes on, and it will get better, it just takes much longer than what it would in people, because we immobilize ourselves or that limb and make sure that we're not putting too much pressure on it. Whereas with her, she doesn't have that luxury, and so it's just her body's got to deal with whatever the problem is and heal slower, but it will heal eventually. Where are you off to, my girl? Well, she's really enjoying her steenbok head, that's for sure. And the cub is looking longingly at mom, as if to say, please, can I have it? You've got what I want. Look, see it? It's almost like I want that head for me. And just kind of staring at mom and saying, stop being such a glutton. But she doesn't look like she's eaten that much. The cub is quite full and rounded, whereas I think mom hasn't had nearly as much food. So unfortunately, mom's going to feed a little bit, and if the cub wants it, can probably go up and get one or two of the legs that are still up there, but it might not have the jaw power yet to be able to break down those legs and those bones and actually crunch them down. You can hear even Shadow. You can hear the crunching of the bones quite clearly as she goes through the skull. So her jaw power will be a little bit stronger than the cub's, and it'll allow her to get to that brain case and those kind of things that maybe the cub wouldn't have. You can hear it there quite clearly. Amazing. So I'm super happy also with Shadow that she's managed to find a meal. It's, you know, we followed her the afternoon before yesterday or 2 days ago, and she was hunting everything in sight, and so the fact that she eventually managed to get something really is wonderful news, and it's something that she needed just to sustain her a little bit longer, keep helping with that healing of the injury, and hopefully we'll see her hanging around in this area a little bit longer. She's right in the center of Djuma at the moment. She's at the hyena den of Philemon's cutline, which is about as central as you could possibly get at this stage. So hopefully she's going to be a few days in this area, and we will be able to see her and spend a lot more time with her around here. Now we have one big cat predator with its cub and eating away at a carcass here in the Sabi Sands, but Jamie Patterson has managed to follow her lioness, and I believe she too has cubs to look at.
From baby leopard cubs to baby lion cubs, we've caught up with the rest of the Angama pride. It turns out that female was hunting that Topi all by herself. The rest of the pride have emerged from the forests with full bellies and a contented look. And it really truly is such a gorgeous morning. And the older ones and the tiny little ones all gathered together, making their way through, following the adults back, I think, towards their lugger. the drainage line where they spend a great deal of time. There's 4 sets of cubs of different ages. 2 of them are around about, I would say, 8 months, nearly 9 months for the older ones, and then the 2 little ones that must be around about 5 months or so, 4 months, 5 months old. Where are we? We're in September, and we first saw those tiny, tiny babies in July, which means they were born in June. So July, August, September, yeah. The youngest ones are 3 months old. Here we go. Now what we will do is we're just going to pull up a little bit just so that we can get a slightly better position as the little cubs come to join the pile, because really there's nothing much better than watching cubs as they greet the adults. There we go. Collection of all ages, 13 cubs in total, or at least there were. I'm trying to do a head count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm certain I'm not seeing all of them though. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, excuse me. Thank you, I'm sorry. The dust in my eye is making me sneeze. Riti, no, lionesses don't do that. Leopards, in fact, very few animals do in terms of the predators. Their approach to getting their youngsters food will be, in the case of lions, they'll go back, they'll fetch the cubs, they'll take them to the kill, and they will feed there. So from around about 6 weeks old, lion cubs are taken to the kill. The same applies for leopard cubs. So leopard cubs do something leopard females do something very similar. They drag the kill somewhere safe, but not far, and then they go and they fetch the cub and they bring it back to the kill. Wild dogs will bolt down a meal, run back to the den site, and regurgitate the food for the puppies. And then once the puppies are old enough, they'll go with the adults on hunts. And then for something like a cheetah, again, she'll go and fetch the cubs and take them back to the kill. Hyenas, in cases where you're talking about a high-ranking female, a hyena will drag pieces of carcass back to the den site. It's the only situation where you get it. And I think one of the big reasons behind that is the sheer strength of a hyena's jaw and its back and its neck. Oh, it's so beautiful, all lined up in the green grass. I've only counted 13 allowed, but I wouldn't worry. I think that's just because I can't see all of them. So it doesn't mean they've lost any. I think it's just because I haven't been able to count all heads. Ben, the average for a lioness is around about 2 to 3. And then you've got a maximum of usually 6, with a record being 8, I think, in Nairobi National Park. But you're looking at an average of between 2 and 3. You get occasional litters of 4, and very, very occasionally litters of 6. I wish I could show you, but unfortunately they're all flying behind me. But the vultures are all on their way to whatever remains of whatever the Angamas killed last night. They're soaring over in their hundreds. Christy, it is pretty common for a lioness to hunt on her own while the others are fed. I mean, she'd fed as well. She'd eaten as well. It's just that pure hunting instinct. It might be that she spotted something, the rest of the lionesses couldn't be bothered to move, and she was the one who initiated and moved off on the hunt. I can actually see her making her way back towards the rest of the pride. Unfortunately, she's just a little bit out of view. I'm going to be speaking very softly. I just got a filthy look from one of the neighbouring vehicles. Sorry. Look at the littlest one's head. Look how much smaller it is. One real human. Yes, lions smell. They don't smell as pungent as hyenas most of the time, but they do smell. And they, excuse me, I'll try to find a tissue at the same time. So they do have a certain scent to them. Dave, I'm sure we had toilet paper somewhere in this car. They do have a certain scent to them, especially when they've been feeding on rotten carcass of some description. And especially when they've eaten a veal and it's made them slightly flatulent, in which case the aroma of rotting meat can be quite overwhelming at times. They're a lot more fastidious than hyenas though, and of course they allo-groom each other, which helps to keep the smell under control. So they're definitely not as smelly as hyenas. But having been up close to lions, they are quite smelly. John, yes, I've noticed huge changes in their hunting behavior. Since the herds of wildebeest that were basically packed into the northern part of the triangle have left, the Angama's hunting strategy, it's gone back to what it was at the beginning when I first started here in June. So they're utilizing the landscape far more. They're spending a lot of time ambushing in the lugger, and they're hunting far more at night. The big difference is the fact that the grass is now gone. When I first started driving around in the Mara, and when I first started spending time with the Angamas, the grass was tall enough to easily hide a lioness walking upright. It's now pretty much completely gone, which means that they have to utilize the termite mounds. Before they were walking along the road because it was quiet and they were hidden by the long grass. Now they have to kind of duck through. Alright guys, there are a lot of lion cubs here. This is a non-off-roading area and there's lots of vehicles who would like to come in and see them. So I'm going to move away so that they can take my place. It's only fair. And while we do that, we'll send you back to another big cat and her youngster.
Well, Jamie, it seems as though you're being spoilt this morning. You've had lions hunting, you've had lion cubs, and those little cubs from the Agama pride seem to be some of the cutest, fattest little cubs in the world. So it's such a pleasant thing to see. Shadow's still crunching away on her steenbok head, though. You can see there's bits of the skull on her paw there, where she's messed a little bit. I'm sure she will clean that up just now, and she's slowly but surely dismantling it. At the moment, there's not as much left. It's getting down towards the sort of jaw sections, and from there, obviously, she'll probably leave it. You won't find them eating the teeth area very often at all. They normally leave the jaw. So what they're trying to do is normally just trying to get into the brain case and get that nutrient that's inside there. And then from there, they actually leave the rest, really. They're not interested in eating teeth. Teeth don't digest. And you can imagine passing a set of steenbok teeth is not the most fun experience, I would imagine. So she'll just eat the sort of brain casing and around that particular section. Also, they will eat the eyes and all of that as well, and then she'll leave that just the jaw and mouth area for the hyenas to come and clean up. The hyenas will go after that. As you can see, it's just chewing away. The cub is, on the other hand, has decided enough of this. I've gone and lay in the big thicket and is now having a proper rest. It is sleepy. So you can just see its little tail sticking out there of that shadowy area. I think it got a bit hot in the sun, so it moved off, and there's just this little white tail flicking from the background. Chatty Meg, you're asking how long do leopards live for and how long do they keep reproducing for? Well, in terms of how long they live for, it's the males tend to have shorter lifespans, so they're normally between sort of 12 and 14 years on average. There's obviously outliers on both sides, so some that have died a little bit younger, others that have lived a little bit longer. In females, you find that number tends to shift a little bit more towards sort of 14 to 16 years, with also, again, females that have lived to over 20. In the wild, it's very, very, very uncommon that a female leopard in the wild would go over 17, 18 years old, but it does happen from time to time. In fact, Karula's mom eventually died at 19 and a half, so they can get very, very old. Out here, it's not very common. In terms of how long they reproduce for, generally you'll find that their last litter is normally around sort of 12 years old, if it's a successful litter. So if it's successful, she's going to raise it for between a year and 2 years, and that's going to take her past breeding age. Although I have seen a 15-and-a-half-year-old female have cubs before, so it does happen from time to time, but past 16 you'll very, 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 very seldom see a leopard having any cubs whatsoever. By then they're too old, they're not probably ovulating very well, their teeth are worn down, the claws are worn down, so even if they had cubs, they're just not going to be able to raise them and look after them effectively. So most of the females you'll find when they reach sort of 12, it's their last litter that they'll have is around 12, 13, and then they produce that one, and that's the end of that. I see the cub just popped its head up as well. I wonder if it didn't hear something. There was tracks for hyenas in this area from last night, going in and out. You can see just the ears poking up at the back there, so it's just watching around and looking and seeing what's happening. But I don't see any presence of hyenas now, which is intriguing to me. Maybe they just realize there's really not enough here for them to stay. Riti, most certainly both wild dogs and hyenas would try and go after that leopard cub. The thing is, this leopard cub now is already old enough that it can climb. So once it can climb, wild dogs and hyenas, while they are still a threat, become far less of a threat than when they're still sort of under 3 months old and they're not able to climb properly. But I mean, wild dogs are a threat even to shadow. They often do chase leopards, and they harass them and chase them up into trees. But the nice thing is that when you can climb, even a spindly little tree is better than no tree when it comes to dogs and hyenas. So you'll find that they're able to get into small trees, and then they just sit there and growl and hiss and keep out of the way of those predators. So that cub should be more than fine. Also remember that cub has probably come across most of those animals now. It's had a lot of time in the wild. Remember, every single day it's walking around, so it will know hyenas very well by now, and will know how to deal with them and how to get away from them. And on the other side of it will also probably have bumped into wild dogs a few times, and so will also know that they are potentially dangerous. There's an inherent instinct as well when something comes barreling towards you for a leopard, just to go try and get up into a tree and get out of the way. So I think the little one's going to be absolutely fine. I don't think we're going to have a situation where it's going to get caught by either one of those. Hopefully not. Obviously it can happen, but hopefully it won't. And with Shadow around, generally at a carcass and things like this, she's going to make sure that hyenas stay away from her young one. Moses, the leopard cubs generally are named when they kind of reach a year old. That's when we know that they've kind of gotten to an age that is more likely than not that they're going to survive and hopefully become an adult individual. So it's generally when it's a year old, and after that they start to leave their mother. So before they do, it's good just to get an ID kit on them going, and to give them some sort of a recognizing name. And the reason the animals, in terms of the animals that we do name, is we have these sort of names for individual leopards, just so that we can know which leopards we're talking about. And as a guide, it was often the case, if you had guessed that if you saw, let's say, Shadow and Cub twice and they found them again, you might want to go and see a different leopard, and it's easier then to know which one is which, and to be able to then kind of control that you're not going and seeing the same leopard all the time. And I suppose some people would be fine with that, but it's also nice to have a bit of variety. So that's the reason. But in terms of which animals, prides, lion prides, so the whole pride, very seldom that female lions will get names unless there's some sort of identifying feature, which is what we see with the Angama pride. Amber eyes has become kind of the famous lioness from that pride because of her eyes being different to all the rest. But otherwise, the rest of the females, we have sort of little nicknames for them, but they're not officially named in any way. It's just the pride names. Male lions, we do name them because generally the male lions move around quite a bit and are often not together. So it's difficult to say Birmingham Coalition when there's only one individual around. So we sort of name them, and then the leopards, like I say, territorial individuals, and sometimes even rhinos get sort of names because they're trying to monitor which rhinos we've got. Are you going to climb your tree again? Yes, it seems like she is. So let me just go back slightly for you, Senzo. try and get Senzo into a place where there's not as many branches. There still will be branches, but not as many. Are you going to go look for a leg now, Shadow? I just love when leopards look up, just like that. So for those of you that like screenshots, when they look up and now you're growling at your own kill. Why? Because it's difficult to get up there. Don't be like that. Maybe it's because the cub is on its way. I don't see where the cub's gone now. Where's the cub? Can you see it, Senzo? The cub is up and just walking there. But it is such a good thing when a leopard looks up like that. And she is going to go up again. She's going to go get the rest of the carcass. Why didn't you just bring it all at once, my girl? Now you're going to struggle your way up there again. And here we go. Here comes the awkward tree climb once again. Or she is just going to stare at us. I'm not quite sure. But there we go. How cool is that, guys? Isn't it amazing just to watch a leopard climb? I think there's something about it. Just how efficient and how graceful they are in getting up and down these trees is absolutely phenomenal. It always astounds me at how well they're able to do it and how quickly they do it. You know, you'd find this person or even other cats like lions and things like that they'd be able to get up, but it's a much slower, much more calculated process. But leopards almost just tend to jump all over the place, and it's 2 seconds and they're up. And I mean, this is a leopard that's carrying an injury and she's still negotiating that tree with complete ease the second time round. First time was a bit out of control and a bit sort of jittery, but the second time round she's kind of worked the way around and she's done just fine. Well done, girl. Right, now let's see what she ends up grabbing. I'm pretty sure she's just going to bring those legs and hopefully feed off them on the ground. See, she's trying to pull, or she's just going to eat them up there. Yep, I'm just going to eat them up there rather. That's much easier. It's a shame the little cub is just looking up longingly at mom as if to say, please can you drop one leg for me so I can also eat it. And the little one is just behind the bush over there. You can see, look, it's just staring at mom with hopeful big eyes. Shame, man. Well, there comes Shadow now with another leg, but she's still left one behind. So are you hungry, girl, that you're going after all of this now? So there's still half of the, well, 2 legs that are left behind, so she's going to have to go back up once again when she comes down here. She's going to go onto that side, and then exactly the same way as she went up, she's going to come down. There we go. She's going to come down right next to us, basically. How cool is that? Yep. And down she goes. Awesome. Very, very cool to see. I love watching, like I say, leopards climbing like that. It's such a special thing, and it's such a treat to see how they do it. And the fact that she's going up and down, and she will go up again when she's finished these legs. There's another leg up there, so maybe she'll leave that one for the cub, or she's going to actually go again. And so we'll have a repeat performance of this, and as Steph likes to say, rinse and repeat. And so we're pretty sure we'll see her going there again. I was hoping that the cub would get a chance to go up. It'll be fun to watch the cub climbing, but I think Shadow's hungry and she's let the cub feed enough. She's saying now it's all mine. At the end of the day, it is a small carcass for 2 leopards, particularly because the cub is now starting to get much larger. That cub is no longer a tiny individual, and so it is starting to get a bit of size, and therefore, see, she's almost like she's calling the cub now. Public, the cub is most definitely learning when she watches Shadow negotiating. Also, she's learning that taking a kill up a tree is what she needs to do in order to sustain herself and to keep her kills safe. So she's learning all the time from mom. That's why she sits and watches mom so sort of thoroughly and kind of checks her out and makes sure that she's constantly looking and seeing what's going on. So she's definitely learning from mom. You can't growl at the kill. It's your own fault it's up there. She makes me laugh, this cat. Getting upset because the kill is in a place that is difficult to get to, but the only person responsible for that, or only leopard responsible for that, is her, unless the little cub did it, in which case it would have been much easier for the cub to have gone up there. But you can see she was making soft little contact calls just now, and that's what's bringing the cub. Now she's growling a little bit and the cub is stopping, so as soon as the cub sees her growling, it almost knows, okay, now I need to stop and not come too close because mom's getting upset. There it comes, slowly edging its way around, checking now where mom was, seeing if there's any scraps that she can feed off. There we go, that's where the skull was. I don't know if there's any food for you there, little one. Oh, little contact calls as well. How sweet. Hey, little one. Look how brave you're getting. This is the closest I've ever had you next to the calf. You really aren't getting too phased by us anymore. Tony Two Toes, you're asking at what age could Shadow's cub look after herself completely? Well, the thing is that it depends on the individual, but I've had a situation where we've had cubs that are less than 10 months old, or around 10 months old, killing fully grown male impalas. So theoretically it could be already at that age that she could be able to do it. So she's now about 9 months old, and so in a month's time she should be able to catch rather larger things. But she could survive now off lizards and birds and scrub hares and various other things. That could be a possibility already. So I would say now already she's probably at the age where she probably can survive and can move around on her own. It just would be really difficult. It's not an easy thing. As we've seen with Shongile and Hosanna, and particularly Shongile, it took her a while to figure things out and to be able to find food, and she had to rely on terrapins and lizards and the likes to be able to actually get enough nutrients, and I would imagine it would be the same. But generally we say from about 10 months they're able to, I mean, it's difficult, but they are able to try and sort of sustain themselves. I remember Tiani, she killed her first fully grown male impala already at just between 9 and 10 months. But Tiani was a much bigger individual than what Shadow's cub is. At the same age, Tiani was probably almost double the size already. So Tiani's a really big girl, and she was able to pull down all kinds of things. Shame, poor cub has been growled at by Shadow, and now it's having to walk away. Shadow, don't be ugly to your cub. Let it have a meal too. So this is all just part and parcel of a mother-daughter relationship. Some days it's a happy one, some days not so much. And when it comes to food, if the little one is fed nicely, now Shadow is hungry, she's going to make sure that she tries to get some, and that's why she's growling a little bit at the cub, and the cub is now moving off because mom is getting upset. The interesting thing though is, if you think that Shadow is being sort of mean to the cub, is that when we first arrived, she was grooming Shadow was grooming the cub non-stop. She was grooming it on the head, and there was lots of bonding and rubbing together and rolling around together. So it's not that she doesn't like the cub or that she's trying to push the cub away. It's just a food situation, and she wants the last leg as opposed to letting the cub get it. So that's why we're in the situation that we're in, and why Shadow's being a little on the grumpy side of life. Also, she's hot now. She's exerted herself going up and down this tree, and she's had a tough time of it, and it's getting warmer, so it's going to be time for her to rest and relax and chill. Right, well, Shadow starts to groom herself and starts to get herself ready for the camera. Let's go back across. I think it's to Jamie. I might have messed this up completely, but hopefully it's Jamie, and I wonder what she's up to and where she's been bumbling around.
Well, I keep trying to get to our jackal den, and I keep finding lions along the way. I'm not going to complain about that. It definitely wasn't my plan, but that's why we have to be flexible in our approach to a morning safari or an afternoon safari. We've got one of the Chitwa males, also known as the triangle boys, also known as the... what's the other name for them? Oh, for goodness sake. Why has it gone out of my head? We've got one of the dominant male lions of this particular northern part of the triangle. So they're dominant over the 3 marsh breakaways, the Angamas and the Sausage Tree Pride, and possibly others, but that's the sort of the main territorial core that I've seen them, as well as the females that spend a lot of time around Chitwa airstrip. And a moment ago, he had his head up, and I was going to try and work out exactly who it was. It's not the big dark-maned male. It might be half-tail. I haven't seen his tail flick, but I don't see a tip to his tail. Half-tail's missing about, you guessed it, a third of his tail. Hello, boy. Here we go, head up. Much blonder than the dark-haired male. Now, he looks relatively well fed and quite happy, and actually in really good health, but we have a question about how long a lion can go without eating before it is too late and they've essentially reached the point where they're too weak to be able to hunt for themselves. You're looking at them being really hungry at around about a week. They can go longer than that though, and by around about 3 weeks or so, that lion is unable to feed itself. It's unable to hunt for itself. If it's fortunate, because that situation might have been caused by an injury, if it's lucky and it's part of a pride or perhaps part of a coalition, it may still be able to survive, because if the rest of the lions are healthy, they'll be able to keep hunting, and they will let that lion feed. So it's always a bit of a complicated situation. I've seen a lioness with a broken leg, and I mean, she was impossible to find. Every time we tried to find her to treat her, she disappeared. But she survived for about a year. She was an old lioness as well. She survived for about a year with a broken leg, thanks to the rest of the pride looking after her. Or at least, not necessarily looking after her, but looking after themselves and allowing her to feed with them. Doesn't he just look so beautiful posing in the morning sunlight? Wind blowing through his mane. Riti, throughout last night we were all serenaded by the sound of the lions roaring, as well as the tree hyraxes, which is a different kind of serenade altogether. I'll play that sound for you. It's profoundly unpleasant, actually, to be completely honest with you. The reason that lions roar is because it's their way of, I mean, you must have heard Brent do the Whose Land Is It? If you haven't, ask him to do the Whose Land Is It? It's a winner. Everybody loves it. Essentially, they're proclaiming that they are there, this is their territory, and it would pay for nobody, it would not pay for anybody to come and trespass. And the lionesses do it because lion prides are territorial, and the males do it because they are territorial. And it's a way of marking their territory without having to fight. So obviously they do mark their territory by scent, they scrape, they urinate, but they roar as well. And it's basically, it's a way of keeping in contact with all of the lions in the surrounding areas and marking their territory at the same time. So if the Angamas, let's say this male started to roar now, the Angamas would probably respond, not always, but probably, and you get a sort of a chain reaction of lions roaring. And that way the lion prides know to stay out of each other's way, and the males know to stay out of each other's way, and at the same time he can find the other members of his coalition by roaring. He can follow the sound of their roars to where he needs to go. And that is why lions roar. It is a unique thing about the Panthera cats, the ability to roar. Leopards can actually technically roar as well. That's the sawing sound that you hear, and it's exactly for the same reason. And it's done by a unique suspensorium in their voice box. I think I'm going to move on and try and find our jackal den. Tayla's had some luck this morning. She's found something else quite small.
We found the smallest of the talls. We've got not just one of them, but two of them, and they are absolutely precious. Now, we've actually seen them for quite some time this morning. They're just moving in and out of the tree line, and that's exactly what we've been doing. Winding along the Mara River on roads that I don't think many people drive on, which is great. It's different, interesting. So we found this beautiful group, and they just had a drink. They went down, but unfortunately we couldn't see it. We could just hear it. And now they're back up, ready to feed. How cool is this? Just standing out in the open, and they're relatively young. And what I've noticed is that these two use any excuse to run. They really enjoy it. They're quite playful with one another. Maybe they will put on a little bit of a show for us. There we go. I'm just going to go over and say hello. Now, they're almost the same age. I think the one at the back is a little bit younger. I think that one is just shy of 6 months. And the other must be just over 6 months. They're not teeny tiny. They're definitely not wobbly on their feet. Yeah, they are so precious. These are honestly one of the most amazing animals that we have out here. We could actually sit and watch giraffe. But my favorite thing to do with giraffe is, of course, encounter them on foot. Especially if you can catch them in an open area. And you can imagine they're quite relaxed. You often see giraffe. They're not too scared of too many things. Obviously run from lions. But otherwise, they just stop and stare and watch everybody from a distance. Now, I have to ask you a question, Alice. Can you hear a ticking sound? If not, fantastic. There, that little one looked like it wanted to suckle. Now, I've actually seen Mom turn this one away. This is the second time this morning, so she's obviously not wanting, well, not ready to let her little one suckle. Let's see if she stands still this time. No, I'm just going to go over and have a rub. No wonder. But they're very curious of us because they'll come closer and then they get scared and then they run away. Now, proud cat mama, you're wondering how long can a giraffe go without water? I suppose a couple of days, but remember, a lot of the times when these giraffes are feeding, it's early in the morning, so the vegetation will be covered in dew most of the time, and they feed along the shrubs that are also on the ground, and it's collecting a lot of dew too, so they are still getting some moisture content, so it's not like they're not drinking. What are they looking at, though? Both adults are standing and staring into that thicket. Now, they've got incredible eyesight, as we know, and like I just said to you, they don't normally run from too many predators, unless it's an entire pride of lions. They might, just stand in the distance, watch, run a little bit, then stop and stare again. So I wonder if there isn't something sitting on the bank. They don't make too many alarm calls. The only time I've ever heard a giraffe making a sound was when, I've told you the story, when we were sitting with a leopard and she was up on a termite mound and we were watching the giraffe, sorry. And the next minute the giraffe turned their attention to the termite mound and went like something like that. It was a bizarre sound. And my tracker then said there's a leopard next to us up on the termite mound watching the giraffe. It was epic. Anyways, Stephanie, you're wondering, how do giraffes sleep? You've never seen one sleeping before? Quite easily, actually. Going down is fine. It's getting up that's the problem. So because they're so tall, they sort of sit down as if a horse were going to sit down, so the same sort of method, and the only difference is that they keep their heads up, so they don't curl their heads and stretch them out down on the ground or tuck them underneath their legs. Should we go up a little bit further? I can do that. Should we reposition, or are you happy here? Okay. They just managed to, can you believe it? The giraffe managed to get a bit too far away from us. So we'll go up further. And they don't sit down for too long, Stephanie, so it's, a couple of hours here and there when they can. You normally see giraffes sitting down on very windy days, surprisingly. I mean, not surprisingly, it wouldn't be nice to have your head up in the wind, and it's windy here often. You see, they're running. They'll eventually get used to the vehicles. But then they go together and I'm sure they try and turn it into a game. Off they go. Everybody seems to be on edge. Impala in the distance has got their eyes open, ears pricked, looking around. So I wonder who's been moving around here through the night that's given these animals a fright. But that's why we're here, I suppose. And hopefully Manu and I are going to find out who it is. Right, but maybe something that could be lurking in the bushes is a leopard. And speaking of leopards, Tristan's got Shadow and her cub. Let's jump back on board with him.
We do indeed, and we just had the most epic moment with Shadow. There's another vehicle arrived and maybe it flushed something, I'm not sure. But Shadow went onto her back legs in that typical kind of meerkat pose. It was so cool, but she only held it for a second, and I was trying to get a photograph of it while we were off air so I could show you guys, but my camera just failed. So I think I might feed my camera to Shadow because I've been trying to get a photograph of a leopard doing that for so long. And it was so cool because the cub was sitting right next to her and she was up on her back legs holding her front legs against her chest, just like a meerkat would sit, and she was watching over the long grass. So it was such a cool moment, but unfortunately, like I say, camera didn't want to work, didn't want to focus, didn't want to take the photograph, so I think it's going to have to go into the bin at some point. No, Ali will probably kill me if I did that, so we're not going to do that, and I don't want to be on the couch for the rest of my life, so let's rather leave the camera on the vehicle and we'll just have a look at it later. But anyway, the cub is edged its way closer and closer towards the tree. Mom has moved away a little bit, so I wonder if we might see the cub trying to go up and get that last little leg that's there. It's been crying to its mom. It was sitting just now looking into the tree longingly, just making these little cries and squeaks as though, please can I go, please let me go. And obviously it was just met with a hissing growl every time. And so she's now watching Mom very carefully. Mom is now lying down and resting just to the right of the tree, and so I'm hoping that the little one will be brave enough now to try and go. And where we are positioned, if we do get a climbing of this cat, we should have a really good view of it and be able to see them coming up and down quite nicely, so it will be really good. Paul, you're asking how far away are we from them? We seem really close. Well, Paul, as you can see, we're not far at all. And so the thing is with these leopards here in Sabi, they're quite habituated to vehicles. You can see they're not showing any sign of distress. Well, I mean, even the cub walked right past the car, and generally if you just turn off, then they'll move around quite a bit. Shadow's a little bit on the sort of stress side this morning, so she has growled once or twice, and it's normally when vehicles are moving, and particularly when they go over trees that are quite sort of tough and make a lot of clinging sounds and hit the car quite a lot. And then the presence of hyenas last night and a kill will make her a little bit more kind of upset and a little bit more tense about what's going on. That, coupled with the fact that she's climbing to try and get this with this injury, is probably not very comfortable to get up there, has put her in a little bit of a bad mood. So we're giving her quite a lot of space. I haven't been too close to her at all, but the cub is super relaxed. The cub doesn't worry about us at all. So I would say in total distance now from the cub, I'm about maybe 10-15 meters, and Shadow, she's about 25 meters away from where I am, maybe 20 meters, so not too far, the two of them. And the thing is that most of the time is if you just park off somewhere, these leopards are fairly relaxed with the presence of vehicles. It's just when they move around a lot. And with Shadow and cub, the biggest trick and the biggest way to actually get this right, to get it right with the two of them, is that they actually stay one vehicle to stay still and one vehicle moves. As soon as two vehicles are moving at the same time, they don't like it at all, and Shadow gets quite upset about it and starts growling. If she's hunting and she's doing her thing and she's by herself, she doesn't really mind too much, but when she's with the cub, as soon as there's more than one vehicle moving, she's not in the best mood at all. So it's better just to take it easy and just park and let one vehicle move, and then as soon as that one's off, then you can move as well. So, but that's how it works with these guys, is that we have to try and kind of earn their trust, so to speak. So we sit for long periods, watch them, try not to go too close, try not to influence their behavior, and try and just watch for them. As soon as you see her growling, then turn off and stop and just stay where you are, because that's going to probably mean that she'll relax a little bit and will be far better off than if you're trying to kind of race around, and she'll then start to distrust vehicles and start to be a little bit more kind of wary of them and not be as easy to find, and certainly wouldn't allow us views like this of her cubs. So best thing is just as soon as you see any sign that they're not comfortable, it's just to turn off, stop where you are, let them decide. If they don't want to be close to you, they're going to move off and carry on. But otherwise, generally what happens is, in my experience with most of these leopards, as soon as you stop and turn off, they start to relax and calm down, and eventually they'll lie down, and sometimes even right next to you. They'll walk up right to the car and lie next to you. So it's just about letting them decide rather than us forcing ourselves into their sort of personal space. It's much like us as a person. You've got an area around you that as soon as somebody comes into that you don't know, you're a bit like, what are you doing here? Get away from me type thing. But once you kind of, if you get to know somebody, then your proximity to them changes a little bit, and it's the exact same thing with them. So it's almost like we're trying to kind of make friends, and that allows us then to spend time at quite small distances like we are now. But you can see when one vehicle's moving, everything is fine. She's not growling, she's not grumpy, she's not anything. You might hear the vehicle driving in the background, so she's okay. As soon as it's just one vehicle, when it becomes two moving at the same time, very different story. But she's panting heavily. I think she's getting quite warm with this sort of sun that's out, and also the activity she's done this morning. She's moved around quite a bit and has been up and down this tree, so she's probably exerted herself. Plus she's got a fairly full belly, which means that she's not able to move that diaphragm as much, and therefore she's taking much shorter breaths than she would if she was in a fit, healthy, if she had not eaten, so that's why she's panting. The cub on the other side, it really is not panting at all. The cub has got a far more relaxed breathing pattern. It hasn't been exerting itself. It also hasn't eaten as much this morning, and therefore the cub doesn't have to worry about panting to cool its body down. It's in a state where it's still perfectly cool, and its mouth is closed and breathing pattern is very regular. But I'm surprised this little one hasn't tried to go up the tree. I would have thought that as soon as Mom turned its back to the tree, it would have been up there. And it seems as though it's got a stern warning from Mom and is now just trying to listen as much as possible and is not going to go up until Mom moves away a little bit further. Although, I'm pretty sure she would be okay. Then, male leopards will kill cubs regularly. New male leopards to an area, so let's say hypothetically Tingana, who's the male leopard that is dominant in this section. For those of you who are new viewers, he would, let's say, disappear, and a new male then pushed in. That new male would try kill these cubs to bring that female back into estrus. And the reason why is that the tenure of a male is very short. So male leopards, male lions, their time that they are in charge is only probably sometimes between sort of 2 years and 5 years. If they're lucky, there are obviously extremes that have a little bit longer, but generally that's the sort of time frame that they're dominant for, which means that in that time frame, if a single female, probably they'll only produce 1, maybe 2 cubs with, if they're lucky. So they don't have a long period of time to be able to try and kind of get their genetics out there, and their drive and their instinct is to mate and to push their genetics forward. And so they will kill the cub because they can't afford to waste 6 months protecting somebody else's lineage and somebody else's cubs and make sure that they kind of looked after. Instead, what they're trying to do is they're trying to kill the cub, bring the female back into estrus, mate with her immediately, get his bloodline going, and that's how it works. And so he'll find then that he'll be able to produce more cubs with that female if he does that. If they wait, it could be a 2-3 week old cub and he's got to wait 2 years until he can mate with that female. It makes no sense, in an animal that has a situation where they've got very short times as dominant individuals. So yes, they most certainly will. And I've even seen fathers that have killed their own male sons. So Mafufanyan used to do it quite a bit. If there was male cubs that the females had, even if they were tiny, even if they were sort of 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks old, I watched him kill 2 cubs like that were both male cubs, and he left the female cubs of those respective litters to themselves. So male leopards are quite harsh when it comes to cubs and killing of them, but they have to be. It's either competition situation, or it's because their tenure is short and they need to get those cubs going and need to produce as soon as possible. Now, I've just watched Shadow. She was looking up again, so I'm hoping that she might decide to go and get that last little leg, or at least the cub get the little leg. But while we see if she does, and hopefully she'll stand up and start moving, I believe Tayla McCurdy, I think she is out and about, and she is definitely out and about, and I think she has lions.
Look at what we've got crawling around on the ground. Now, most of you will remember we had that really cool sighting of the siafu ants, where they were moving their colony, carrying their eggs. Some of the workers had formed a ant shield around the others so they can move through safely. Now, that was pretty amazing. I always talk about matabele ants, and we used to see lots of them in Zambia. Now, I have no idea if these are matabele ants. I don't know if they occur up in this area. Maybe there's something similar. They've just been running around, and I was a little bit naughty. I opened my door and I stretched as far down as I could, and I blew some air onto these ants. And if you remember, because I've spoken about these ants for a while, I said that they hiss right back at you, and they did too. Manu even heard them. It's the most incredible sound. All of them go sss. I'm not going to do it again now, but absolutely incredible. So I must do some research and actually find out if this is where the matabele ants also occur, like they did in Zambia. Very, very cool though. Wow. Oh my goodness, look at a water monitor. Look how big it is, just sitting here on this little, it looks like a little crater, but it's not a crater, of course. Look how cool that is. That is huge. I only just saw it now. It must have just come out of a burrow or something, and it's now sunning itself. Very cool. Well, we're not too far away from the water either, so maybe it's heading that way. Now, this even looks like some of the biggest water monitors that we see in the Sabi sand, but everything is bigger and more glamorous out here. Wow. Really, really does remind me of Godzilla. Every time I see it, that's what pops into my head first. Now, we're going to carry on and hopefully find some lions. That was our plan this morning. And let's go across to Jamie and see what hers is doing.
I'm bird watching. I'm sitting watching a bird. I didn't manage to get a casqued hornbill, black and white casqued hornbill on camera earlier, but we have got a lilac-breasted roller and somebody who would really like to get past me. Sorry, Dave. I know. Hold on, I'm moving. Guys, it was just so pretty in the sun that I thought we had to just stop and enjoy it. The light is getting harsher and harsher. It's not as apparent as it would have been this morning just how colourful these little birds are. Unfortunately, I'm in the area of the jackal den. Oh my goodness. I didn't quite realise what kind of a backup I'd caused. Morning! Anyone else? Yes? No? No? Okay, we're good. We're fine. Oh, the jackals. Unfortunately, the jackals, I think, are in bed. It's bedtime for little jackals. What you after? Roller's just ducked down and gone after something on the ground. Let's see if it pops back up. Gone. Gone? Oh, was not gone. No, it's straight into the sun. Apologies. Jared, you have a request for us about the sounds in the Mara, since the sounds of Djuma are fascinating. I promise you it's not because we don't want to show you the sounds. It's just that over the last 2 weeks the wind has not stopped howling. It has absolutely howled, and every time we've tried to sit quietly and listen, occasionally we can hear the crickets, but for the most part all you hear is the wind over the microphone. So it's not that we're ignoring your request, it's just that it's one of those things. What I will do for you while we watch a pretty lilac-breasted roller is I'm going to show you exactly what it sounds like to listen to a tree hyrax at night. It is the most peculiar sound. Hold on, I'm going to play it for you. Doo-doo-doo. Just finding it. This is what is in our camp every night. Wait for it, it gets better. That's the beginning of their call. You get the idea. And they really, really love our tents. Especially Brent and myself have got a tent at the back behind a big tree. And they like to... First they go pitter-patter, pitter-patter, pitter-patter over the tent roof. And then they scream like that. It's actually, when there's a whole load of them, and especially when we drive around the river at night, it's actually almost deafening. So it's not that we want to just talk our way through all the sounds of the Mara, it's just that the wind keeps kind of blowing all the sounds away. It's so much more open that it becomes really tricky. We have tried with bird calls, lion roars, and when it's nice and still and when the sounds are really nice, then we will stop and sit and listen. Like we were going to do with the casqued hornbill, but unfortunately it flew away. Where should we go, Dave? I don't really know where to go. I'll figure it out. Okay, well I bumble about aimlessly. Tristan at least is still with the lovely Shadow. Let's go and find out how she's doing.
Well, she is looking very lovely. Look at how she's just regally sitting on top of a little mound, just taking it very easy. The little cub has moved, went to go and get some love from mom and was met with teeth and snarling, and so then decided better to move off and go and lie somewhere else. The interesting thing though is that we are sitting here, and why earlier I thought Tayla was with lions, which she wasn't. It was a completely messed up link that I did, but the reason why is because there is thunder. So we'll turn the ambience up, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it, but there is thunder rolling in very quickly. Now for those of you that don't know, we have a bet in camp as to when the first rains are going to arrive. I said the 27th of September, which is tomorrow, but given the thunder that is slowly but surely approaching us, I feel like we might just get that storm today. And if we do, well, I think I'll win the bet, won't I, Senzo?
No.
No, I won't win the bet. Why?
It's not the 27th.
Senzo says it's not the 27th, but I feel like I would be closest out of the whole team because everybody else went to October dates. Brent was a month ahead. Sorry, what's it?
One is closest.
We'd have to. Now am I changing the rules? So Senzo is saying I'm changing the rules because I didn't say it was closest, but it is that way. So I would be the closest. And so Brent is the 26th of October, and Megan's 2nd of October, so she would be the second closest. And then I think it's Lou, and then Senzo on the 10th. Senzo, you're the 10th, eh? Yes, so let's see. But the thunder is very interesting. But we are in prime position if Shadow goes up this tree again. So she's had a bit of a rest. There we go. How awesome is that? So for those of you that are quick on your screen grabs, maybe if you play that back, you can get her jumping up into the tree, because that was very, very cool. And hopefully she's going to do the exact same coming back down again. She should come straight towards us on the way down, which will be wonderful. It will be as good as we can possibly ask for. We certainly will get, hopefully, a very, very, very good view of her coming down, which will be nice. Now she's always just kind of taken a little bit easier where she is now, and she makes sure that she is in a situation where she can just work out exactly which way she's going to go, and up she goes. Well done, girl. It's getting better every time she goes. Is far more mobile every time she goes over. And oh no, don't put your foot there. That's not the right branch. Oh, Shadow, what are you doing? This is not elegant, and not what a leopard normally does, but now she's got herself into a very compromised position. And she... What are you doing, girl? Oh, there we go. Once she could get her claws into that smaller branch, she was able to stabilize herself. But at one point there, if it wasn't for that smaller branch and her backside being on it, she would have maybe fallen out of the tree. So I'm glad that she's in a situation where she's gotten herself right again. But that was not elegant. And I was saying it was getting better every time she's going up, but that was probably the worst attempt that she's had since we've been here. That was almost a complete fail as she kind of negotiated that way up there. I'm sure it's also because she doesn't quite have as much strength in her front foot at the moment, and that's why she's sort of battling in some ways to be able to actually pull herself and keep herself stable with that one leg. Now she's playing a game of tug and war. Oh, Shadow. Oh, there goes the leg. Oopsie. So her leg just fell out of the tree, and now she should start coming down and start heading in this general direction. Come on, girl. Come down nicely. Don't come down with too much force. We want you to be healthy and fit. And there we go. Down she came. So she'll eat that last little bit of scraps and a little bit of fur that she's got there. Then she'll go probably feed off the leg, and that's the end of it. From there, what I would imagine is we're going to see a situation where this cub and her might then start going for water. I wouldn't be surprised they take us towards Treehouse Dam. We saw yesterday with Ali that they did do exactly that. As soon as they had finished, well, as soon as she went to go get the cub, on the way back was just to stop and get food, get water. And I would imagine it's going to be a very similar situation now as soon as they finished. But that didn't last long. As you can see, it was wolfed down. Does that not agree with you, Shadow? Almost looks as though she's going to get sick again. Nope, all is good. So there we go. She's going to go straight back to the leg that fell down, and she'll crunch that down at some point, and that will be the end of that, and that will be the carcass over. So while we watch Shadow, well, not that we're going to watch much now that she's gone behind the tree, but while we look at her tail behind the tree, let's go across to Jamie, who I believe has got a beautiful view of a large herd of pachyderms in the Great African Plains.
I didn't even realise there was a rain bed happening on Djuma. I hope that they do actually get rain, because apparently it is looking very, very dry. Here is looking much greener, on the other hand, although this is a part of the area where the grass is still quite long. The wildebeest didn't spend too much time here. And we've got the cutest scene of two baby elephants playing about. And they've been chasing each other and running up and down and up and down. One in particular, the littlest one, is barely visible above the grass at times. And it's been trotting backwards and forwards like it's had a sugar rush. Like somebody let it eat a whole load of chocolate and some sugary drinks. Watched calmly by the females around it. They really do have massive tusks here, some of them. Oh, little one, you calm down now. Used up all your energy. Looking for a meal. I put myself here in the hope that they are going to move towards us gradually. They don't seem to be showing any intention of it. This is where we saw the elephant give birth. Well, it was on the other side of the road, but it was essentially this area. A very, very special moment. Oh look, elephant's about to be joined by little Tommies, bouncing across in front of them. Thompsons are always running. Always bounding about. And the myopic elephants keeping an eye on what's going on, checking to see, listening, smelling, before relaxing once again. Proud cat mama, good morning and welcome again to the Sunrise Safari. Elephant tusks are used for a couple of different reasons. One is defense and intimidation, particularly with the males when they come into conflict with each other over mating rights to females. Usually only the really big mature bulls will get into proper serious fights, and they can actually die. It's unusual, but they can be killed. There's stab marks from another elephant's tusks, and there's the famous case of Mafufunyan, the grumpy one, who was one of the big tuskers in Kruger, and he had a hole in the top of his head that they suspect was made during a fight with another bull elephant. A hole in the top of his head that he could actually breathe through, like a blowhole, which is quite surreal. So it went right through his skull into his sinus cavity. Then they also use them for digging and for stripping the bark off trees. Now, we don't see that as often. Oh, bye, Tommy. Coming, going, backwards, forwards. Where are you off to now? Running for the sheer joy of it. So they don't do that as much here, and the reason for that is simply because there's just that much more grass, and it's really good quality grass. So they're not as worn down as the tusks of the elephants that are on Djuma, but they do use them for digging and as a tool, essentially. Remember, these are modified teeth. They grow throughout their lives, and they can break, and it can be quite painful when they break as well. I really think that one of the reasons why we see longer tusks on the females here is because they don't use their tusks as often for scraping on bark and for digging. Hardly ever see them do it here. LM, no, actually. Funnily enough, you can't use the tusks to determine the elephant's age. And that's because it's a genetic thing. So, whilst yes, as a sort of a general rule, an older female will have longer tusks. They often break, they often wear down, and some elephants are just born with tusks. Use that to gauge the age of the elephant, but really it's far better to gauge how old an elephant is by the size when they're not fully grown, And then you look at the indentations around their foreheads. As they grow older, they get more and more sunken around the temporal region, and their bones become more prominent. So whilst it's difficult for us to accurately age the elephants by sight, that's one of the ways that we can get a rough idea. The best way to age them would be to have a look at their molars, because they have set ages at which they grow the different sets of teeth. They start to get their permanent first set of teeth when they're little. Then at 15 they get their next set, and then at 30 they get their next set, 45 their next set, and wait, I've got that wrong. 45 is the last set that they get. So you can look, they will go through set ages, and they will have 6 sets of teeth throughout their lives, and that's the way that you can gauge exactly how old an elephant is. Of course, getting an elephant to say open wide and show you the molar is not particularly easy. So it's quite difficult to do just purely on sight. We guess roughly, and you'll usually find when we age an elephant, we'll say 20-ish, 30-ish, somewhere around there, but we're not giving you an exact accurate figure. Look at these two. Mischief personified right there. One about 6 months younger than the other. I think both little boys as well. So full of nonsense.